in this place. That bright smile long gone been replaced. From ear to ear I see that fear in your face. Tell me when the last time you felt safe, cause there's some evil people in the streets. Evil at your front door, creeping while you sleep. It's time to raise up, show that evil we ain't weak. We don't turn the other cheek, I can show you how to be strong. Come on, follow me. Heard you looking for a hero. Well, look up. No more running from the bad guy, I'ma stare him in the eye like, what's up? I know the journey got hard for a minute, but I ain't giving this up. Yeah, I got the heart of a champion. If I get knocked down, I get back up. We go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Insights of a Survivor. It's me again, PJ, here to bring you another solo episode of empowerment. I have to always do this before every episode. I'm a little nervous with this one because this one is going to kind of hit some buttons. So I'm just getting myself ready, making sure I got my little earphones right. Hopefully y'all can hear me well. And I want to start off by saying, before we begin, I want to acknowledge that today's topics in this episode will cover sensitive topics, including domestic violence, survivorship, and the healing journey. Some content will be sensitive or triggering for listeners who have experienced trauma. Please take care of yourself. Pause. You need to pause, reach out for support if you need to, and prioritize your well-being, because this episode is going to be, I just got to bring it tonight. I don't know. So just again, beautiful souls, welcome back. This is a podcast that holds space for those of us who have lived through unthinkable, unimaginable, unnecessary trauma and still found a way to keep going. Again, you guys know me. I'm PJ, a survivor, a truth teller, and someone who believes that pain doesn't get the final say in our stories. Here on this platform, we speak words that many are really afraid to say. We name patterns. We point it out. This is the place where we find our voice. The pain, the manipulation, we address it, not to dwell in the darkness, but to understand it and eventually rise out of it. We're not here to sugarcoat anything. I'm not here to sugarcoat anything. If I do, I'm not being true to who I am. I'm here to get real, because real is where healing starts. If this is your first time listening, welcome. Thank you so much for your support. You found a space that doesn't just talk at you, it speaks with you. And if you've been rocking with me for a little while, then you already know my vibe. You know I'm here, and my purpose is about reframing pain into power, survival into strength, and silence into a voice. So, okay, today's episode is one that I've been kind of holding off on for a while because the topic is personal. It's deep, it's uncomfortable, but it's necessary. It's needed. And it's something that we should not feel ashamed or afraid to say. The title of this episode is Addicted to Pain. Loving the one who has made us bleed. The dirty truth about Stockholm syndrome. So take a moment with that. Just take a moment. Just let that sit with you for a minute. Okay, because this isn't just about relationships or betrayal. This is about the psychological bonds we form with those who do hurt us. The way trauma can tangle with attachment, and how love can be weaponized against us when we're just in survival mode. So before we go any further, I want to pause. I'm going to give another trigger warning, because in this episode, I will be discussing trauma, emotional, physical, psychological. Excuse me. I just ate y'all, so excuse me. Manipulate, psychological manipulation, coercion, and survival responses. These are heavy, heavy, heavy themes. So I encourage you, as always, just to take care of yourself. I'm going to say this again. If you need to pause, if you need to step away, if you need to skip this episode, you do what you need to do to protect your peace, because this space is here for you when you are ready. So that means, and I want to make something really clear before we go any deeper, any deeper. My intention with this conversation is not to shame anyone. It's not to point fingers at anyone. It's not to assign blame or judgment or anything for your past or present choices, because I've been there. I've been the one tangled in those same loops. So I'm nowhere near um, able or wanting to try to look down my nose or point my finger at anybody, because I have no reason to. I have no, I have no desire to want to do that. I know what it feels like to feel like I couldn't leave, I didn't know how to leave, or that I didn't even deserve better. So if you ever felt that way, this episode is for you. This conversation is about education, reflection, and empowerment. And it's going to be a long one. It might go a little longer, so y'all be ready for this, because we're going to talk about what Stockholm Syndrome really is beyond the textbook version. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on it. We're going to unpack some things. We're going to, we're going to look at how trauma bonds are formed, how cycles of abuse trick our nervous systems into staying connected to our abusers, and why this isn't about weakness. You're going to hear me say that a lot in this episode, that you're not weak. It's about survival. We're going to talk about how to reframe that survival into something powerful. Because once you understand the why behind your patterns, it's easier to get your power back and kind of work your way through them. Because let's be honest, it's not hard. It's not easy. I'm sorry, I'm saying that backwards. It's not easy. So here we go. You ready? Let's talk about society. Yay. Society loves to judge people. You see it all over the place. Somebody's laughing at somebody. Somebody's talking about somebody. They love to judge from the outside. People ask, why don't you leave? But they don't ask, what's making you stay? They don't try to figure out what it is that's keeping you there. Instead of judging, why don't you just leave? Because it's so easy to just jump up and leave for somebody who's doing some of the things that are happening to you, right? Or better yet, they don't ask you what made you believe you had no choice. So today we're going there. We're having a raw conversation about what most people aren't ready for. But you got to get ready, because you're ready to stop surviving and you're ready to start understanding. You're ready to stop asking what's wrong with you and start asking what happened and what was wired into you by the pain that you didn't ask for. This space, this episode, this voice in your ear right now, it's not here to judge you. It's here to walk with you. So if you ever found yourself loving someone who hurt you, if you ever felt stuck in a cycle that made no sense, if you've ever thought, maybe it's me, because that was one of my things. I'm like, I'm attracting so many people, or I'm doing this to myself because I was taught that it was me. This is a reminder. It's not you. It's what happens when pain is dressed up as love. And we're about to strip that illusion away. We're going to strip it all the way down. So just grab something warm, light a candle, get grounded, because we're about to talk about the dirty truth behind trauma bonds and why sometimes the person who we protect, because we will protect these people the most, are the ones that cause us the most harm. So you ready? Okay. So again, we've heard the phrase before, maybe in documentaries, maybe in true crime stories, or just kind of conversations about toxic relationships and therapy or whatever, about Stockholm Syndrome. What does that really mean? And more importantly, what does it feel like when you're living with it from when you're on the inside? So let me break it down. No jargon, no clinical textbook, just the truth. Stockholm Syndrome is a psychological response that happens when someone's been abused, held captive, or manipulated to form a bond, even a deep emotional attachment with the person that's causing them harm. So again, it's someone who's been abused, held captive. So there's people that fall in love with their kidnappers, manipulated, and then they begin to form a bond with this person, an emotional attachment with this person, knowing that this person is causing them harm. It's when the survivor develops empathy, loyalty, or affection for their abusers or their captor, not because they want to, but because somewhere deep in their wiring, in the wiring of their brain, it feels safer to just attach than it does to resist. Because if I resist, you're gonna hurt me. I'm gonna have a consequence. I would rather just allow myself to form a bond with you than to resist and suffer the consequences about it. It's not about being stupid. It's not about being weak. It's about survival. This is your brain trying to keep you alive in an impossible situation. So let's rewind that for a second. Where does the term Stockholm syndrome even come from? Because a lot of us don't even know where a lot of these, we get a lot of phrases thrown at us: PTSD, Stockholm syndrome, this disorder, that disorder, and we don't have any idea of what these are. Just words that are told that this is what you have, take these pills, go home. Where did the term come from? Back in 1973, during a 6-day hostage situation at a bank in Stockholm, Sweden, 4 hostages were trapped inside of a vault with 2 armed robbers named Jan Erik Olsen and Clark Olofsson. I cannot say that name, so we're just going to leave that alone. You want to know what his name is, Google it, because I can't say that. Olofsson, that's the best you're getting from me. But they were basically held captive by these 2 gentlemen. But this is the part that gets really, really real. When the ordeal was finally over, the hostages were released, and instead of being angry with the people who kept them captive for all these days, kept them from their families, probably didn't feed them, they actually defended these guys. They refused to testify against them in court, and one woman, like who was one of the kidnappees, she started raising money for the defense. And everybody's like, what is going on? The police were confused, the public was confused, the media, they didn't understand, because from the outside it didn't make any sense. But inside that vault, inside that trauma, the human brain was doing what it always does in extreme situations: it adapts. So let's talk a little bit about the psychological mechanics behind this, because Stockholm syndrome is not just a label, it's what happens to someone when they're in a powerless, high stress, or an abusive situation that starts to shift their mindset to survive. So that's this is where we're gonna kind of go to the background of it so people can really understand what's going on. Their body is going into survival instinct. Your brain senses danger, especially the kind of danger that's prolonged, confusing, or unpredictable, and then your brain just kicks into gear. You can be with someone and you sneezed wrong and they just slap you. Your brain does not understand. It's confusing, like, what happened? So we got to survive. Your nervous system is kind of scanning for any possible way to stay safe, stay alive, to not allow themselves to be harmed from whoever their abuser is. And if your abuser is also feeding you, letting you sleep, and occasionally showing you some kind of kindness, your brain starts to see them as a path to survival. Like, okay, I have to keep this person happy so that I can stay safe, so that I can be fed. That's like, especially if you're in a situation where you're financially dependent on your abuser. So your brain sees that as a way to survive. That doesn't mean you completely trust them. It just means your body is learning. If I stay close, if I don't fight back, maybe I'll make it through this situation. That's biology, not weakness. So this is the part where it gets a little tricky. Abusers often alternate between, it's kind of a punishment and reward system, and every time they give you that little tiny breadcrumb, that little piece of attention, or that little minute speck of love, your brain kind of lightens up. Oh my God, they feel that relief. Okay, I'm doing something right. Even if they were the one causing the fear in the first place, that moment of kindness can feel like oxygen. It can feel like air. I can breathe now. And this creates the trauma bond, a powerful emotional connection that forms through cycles of harm and comfort. It's not fake and it's not imagined. It's literally the chemicals in your brain, the oxytocin, dopamine, and cortisol, rewiring your trust and attachment system. That's why people don't just walk away. That's why it feels like a love, even when it's kind of wrapped up in pain and abuse and everything. Okay, and then your mind, because this goes a little deeper, your mind tries to hold on to two conflicting truths at the same time. He hurt me, but I care about him. She threatened me, but she also cried when I almost left. Your brain cannot reconcile it. It cannot put it together. So it just does what it needs to survive. Then it starts bending the truth. You begin to downplay the abuse. You make excuses. You cling to the good moments because the bad ones are so overwhelming. Your brain can't deal with it. So you tell yourself, well, they didn't mean to, or it's not really that bad, or maybe I did something to deserve this. And it's not because you're naive. It's not because you're stupid. It's not because you don't want to see the truth. It's because your brain is doing damage control, trying to reduce the stress of holding on to two realities that don't fit together. Because right now you're trying to understand, why are they treating me like they love me one minute, and then next they treat me like they hate me. And again, that's a human response. It's not a flaw. If you've experienced Stockholm syndrome, whether you're in a domestic relationship, a parental relationship, a toxic friendship, work dynamic, or something else, you're not broken. It's not about how strong or smart you are. It's about what happens when the human brain and the body are put into an unsafe environment for too long without any clear way out. Your brain chooses attachment because it believes if the attachment is there, that might be your only way to survive. It's a coping strategy. It's a coping skill. It's your nervous system doing what it was designed to do to protect you. And here's the thing. You don't have to be locked into a vault like those hostages back in 1973 to experience Stockholm syndrome. It can happen in your home. It can happen in a romantic relationship. It can happen in a relationship situation with a roommate. It can be the person you sleep next to in the same room who gaslights you. It can happen in childhood. It can happen with a caregiver. It can happen with anyone. It can happen with someone who fed you, clothed you, or occasionally even said every out the blue, hey, I love you. When people say, why didn't you just leave? Oh my goodness. That's just like, that is where it gets really, really hurtful. Now, I'm going to talk about something very sensitive that is going on in the media today. I don't know how many of you have been watching this, but it is everywhere. It's the Cassie and the Diddy case. This is something that has finally started to come to light publicly. For years, this woman stood by that man's side. She looked polished. She looked successful. She was absolutely beautiful. From the outside looking in, it seemed like she was living a dream. Red carpets, music videos, designer gowns. But behind all of this was a pattern of coercion, control, and trauma that she kept hidden in plain sight. And now, as horrifying as the details that are coming out are, the same questions are being asked repeatedly. Why did she stay? Or the accusations. Oh, she's staying because she wanted to, she didn't want to lose out on what she that she was getting, all of the privileges and the perks and everything that she was getting from the situation. She's basically being victim shamed for staying in a relationship where she was tortured for a very long time since she was a young girl. But that question, why did she stay? That question, that's not a neutral question. It's layered with blame, judgment, and ignorance. That question is part of the problem. Stockholm syndrome isn't about foolishness or weakness. It's about survival. It's about a trauma bond when created with fear, manipulation, and isolation. And these are all weaponized over time, which is what this woman had to deal with. And she was brave enough to come forward and tell her truth and make it why did she stay? When someone becomes both your captor and your comforter, when escaping feels more dangerous physically, emotionally, socially than actually staying does, when society labels survivors as gold diggers, clout chasers, or naive, aka stupid. It strengthens the chains of that trauma bond. It tells survivors no one's going to believe you. You're on your own. Maybe you deserved it. And that when that message is loud enough for long enough, some survivors they internalize it. They stop seeing a way out because the only person who knows what's happening behind those closed doors is the one that's hurting you. Victim blaming doesn't just hurt, it also fuels Stockholm syndrome. It isolates, it silences, it makes going back feel safer than speaking up. We need to shift the conversation from why didn't she leave to what made it so hard for her to escape. From she should have known better to how can we make it safer for her and others to come forward. The Cassie Diddy case isn't about celebrities. It's not just about celebrities. It's a mirror reflecting how society often treats survivors. And if we want change, we have to start by changing how we listen, believe, and respond. I thank her. I thank you, Cassie, and all of the other people who are coming forth, doing something that took so much courage and allowed the world to see us through her pain, to understand that we as victims have not only been attacked by our abusers, but by those who are meant to support us instead of judge us. When we are at our lowest, that's when they comfort us. No matter how good we look on the outside, that's what they see in us. So thank you, Cassie, for being strong enough to relive your trauma, to not only seek justice, but to help the world understand. Because what they don't understand is your brain made a choice, not out of logic, but out of survival. And sometimes the safest thing your body knew how to do was to attach and comply. So if you ever loved the person who hurt you, if you ever defended someone who made you feel small, if you ever blamed yourself for staying, let me say this to you that it is not your fault. It's not. You're not crazy. You're not weak. You were trying to survive. And that survival deserves to be honored, not judged. These trauma bonds get reinforced over time. And how do we recognize when we're stuck in that cycle? That's really important. It's not something that's fast. It's a slow, powerful process, and it's a process of unlearning all of that stuff that we were taught that kept us confined in that situation. But before we move forward, I want everybody to take a breath. Anyone listening, just let's take a breath and let that truth settle in. No shame, no guilt, just clarity that you adapted, you made it, and now you get to learn a new way. Now just stay with me because we're going to dive into a couple of other things of how these bonds actually form over time and why leaving just isn't always the answer. Okay, so let's shift into something that's going to be a little bit uncomfortable for us. It's, the addiction to pain. And I already know hearing that could kind of sting a little bit because we've been through so much already. And the last thing we need to hear is me telling all of us that we chose the pain. That's not what this conversation is about. This is not about blame. It's not about judgment. It's about understanding how this trauma operates and how human brains can try to keep us safe in the middle of so much chaos. I told you I'm going to say stuff a lot. And this one I am going to say this is not about weakness. It's about wiring. So I'm going to say that again. This is not about being weak. It's not. This is something about how strong your mind is when it's trying to survive something that wasn't safe, but that was all you had. When you're caught in a harmful relationship, whether it's emotional abuse, manipulation, neglect, or any other kind of toxic dynamic or a combination of a few, our bodies and our minds do everything we can to adapt. And sometimes that adaptation shows up as attachment, loyalty, or even kind of wishing for the moments of peace in the middle of this chaotic storm. That doesn't make you broken, it makes you human. When someone experiences repeated trauma, repeated, especially in relationships, the nervous system starts to move through those patterns of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And over time, this can actually create a cycle, not because we want the pain, but because we're trying to stay safe. When these moments of fear are followed by short moments of relief and kindness, the brain responds. That tiny moment of peace, that tiny moment of love, it lights up the nervous system like, okay, maybe we're safe now. That pattern builds a loop, not because you're addicted to suffering, but because your brain is attaching to anything that feels like relief, like calm, like love. And when you've been walking through fire, even a tiny drop of water feels like a miracle. So here's where it gets kind of complicated. That calm after chaos, that apology after the explosion, that soft moment after the of silence after the storm, that can start to feel like actual love. Not because it is, but because it's the only version of love that you're getting. That doesn't mean that you loved the pain. It means you loved the moments that you could finally breathe. That means your body and your spirit were doing the best they could to find meaning, to hold on, to stay connected. And if anyone has told you this, if anyone has never told you this, let me be the first. There's nothing wrong with you for doing that. You're doing what humans do all the time. You're trying to survive, trying to feel love, trying to feel hope. So this part is going to be a little bit personal for a lot of people too, because shame is real. The shame of realizing that you cared for somebody, maybe even deeply loved someone who abused you. And let me pause to say this real quick. That is not a reflection of your worth. That is not a reflection of how powerful your heart is. You may have loved because you believed in healing, because you saw a little piece of who this person could be, because you hoped that they would return to a version of themselves that they may have shown you in the beginning. And you know what? Again, that doesn't make you weak. That shows your capacity for hope, forgiveness, and for depth. But it can also show how trauma can blur the lines and how pain and peace can get tangled when someone keeps shifting between hurting you and holding on to you. You didn't fail. You were navigating something that was really complicated with the tools that you were probably shaped by your own pain, that were probably shaped by your own pain. And you have to worry about how to survive. So you just allow yourself to kind of ride the wave. And then there's the guilt survivors carry, the guilt of staying, the guilt of returning, the guilt of not leaving sooner, and even the guilt of still feeling something for someone that did us harm. So let me say this plainly to you. That guilt and that shame, it's not yours. You don't need to carry it. You did what you needed to survive, to hold on, to function. And again, that's not what? That's not weakness. It's resilience. We are not here to judge your process. We are here to honor it, to hold space, to understand it. Because healing starts when we realize that that pain wasn't our fault. And our actions to that pain, that's not shameful. And you probably heard it again. Why didn't you just leave? If you ever heard that question, or if you even asked yourself that question, I want you to know something. That question doesn't reflect the truth of what you were facing. People on the outside, they don't see the layers. They don't see the fear. They don't see the isolation, the financial control, the emotional manipulation, or the hope that you even had that this person would finally love you enough to just stop. So just leave. Just leave isn't a solution when your entire world has been built around survival. That question, that question isn't why didn't you just leave? That question should be what helped you stay alive while you were still in it? What support do you need now to move forward with this power? Because that's where the healing begins. And if you're listening right now and this is stirring something up, if you're realizing patterns that you never have had, words for, I want to tell you something loud and clear. You're not broken. You're not dramatic, and you are not to blame. You were in a cycle designed to confuse you, wear you down, and keep you small. And you still made it. You still made it here. You're still fighting. You're still standing. You're still reclaiming your truth. And that is power. That is sacred. And that deserves to be seen without shame. So let's keep walking this journey together, not by pretending the pain didn't happen, because we can't erase it, but by refusing to let it define who we are now. You deserve so much. We're about to talk about how we begin to rewire those beliefs and reclaim our power without apology, because you deserve your freedom. You deserve your peace. In this space, it was built for you. People talk about their breaking points. They talk, they talk about it like your breaking points are loud, like it's this big dramatic scene where someone slams a door and packs a bag and never looks back. But for me, that wasn't it. And most of the time it's not. For me at all, it was a cigarette. I used to smoke. I haven't smoked in years, but I used to smoke a lot, trying to cope with my situation. And it was a cigarette, one cigarette. That's that was all it took, because not because the cigarette mattered, because of everything else that happened. My ex, he got really mad at me because I smoked the last cigarette. That was the thing he latched onto. Not the years of me carrying everything, paying the rent, the bills, taking care of the kids, buying him cars, him clothes, him stealing my money. Not the fact that he never held a job for longer than a few weeks, maybe a month or so. Not the fact that I paid the bills. I held everything down. I survived everything that he brought to me, everything that he created. No, it was the last cigarette, the one I smoked. From the pack that I bought, and even then, I was the one who was going to buy the next pack. So it's like, whatever, okay, like, whatever. I didn't argue that day, though. I was just like, you know what, I'm done. I'm over this. I didn't yell back at him. I was just tired. I tried to calm the situation down, but I was so tired. I was tired in a way that I cannot explain. So I just got up, I grabbed my keys, I walked out the door to just go buy him another pack of cigarettes. I didn't say a word. I just kind of walked out. And that silence, it pissed him off. It made him so mad. Not yelling, not the crying, not the pleading. It was me choosing peace that made him violent. So I walked out of our house. I'm walking through the parking lot. We had a duplex and the parking lot was in the front. So I'm walking to the house because the store is like a 2-minute walk from our house. And before I could even reach the end of the parking lot, he was behind the wheel of the car that I bought him. And he used that car to hit me. He just backed into me like I was nothing. Then he got out of that car and jumped into the car that I bought myself. And I'm trying to get up and I'm surprised, like, oh my God, this man just hit me with his car. And then he backs into me again, like it was nothing, like I was nothing. And then he did it again, and he did it again. Right there in broad daylight, in the open, like it was nothing. My body had been through so much over the years, but that moment, that was different. That was the moment that my neighbor came out screaming, an old Hispanic lady. I love her so much. And she came out screaming, "You leave her alone." That was the moment she yelled out, saying that she was calling the police. That was the moment the violence could no longer be hidden behind the walls. And he didn't care. He'd gotten away with it so many times. He stood there and waited for the police to come because he thought it was going to be another time. And he got away with hitting me because he had done it so many times and had never been arrested. When the police called, he was just that confident. But they arrested him. He went to jail. But he got sentenced to 1 month in jail. One. And he was told that he only had to serve 2 weeks. I said, okay, that's it. I'm done. That was my breaking point. Not because I finally found the strength. I always had that strength. But because I finally stopped making excuses for his weakness. Thinking that that breaking point is some magical, peaceful thing, it's not. It wasn't. It felt like rage. It was exhaustion. It was clarity that screamed, you do not belong in this hell anymore. I wasn't waiting for a better time. I wasn't looking for approval. I wasn't praying for a change. I was finished. I was done. But even then, the healing didn't start right away. Even then, I didn't feel free. I felt grief that I didn't leave sooner. I felt anger for every piece of myself, for every piece of myself that I lost, trying to keep this sorry man from exploding. Because leaving doesn't suddenly just fix everything. People say things like, well, you should be happy now. You have your kids, and you're not in this toxic relationship anymore. But they don't understand. What they don't understand is that you have to detox from that damage. You have to face the fact that even after this person who has ruined you or tried to ruin you is gone, that voice is still echoing in your head. His threats, they still live in your nervous system. Her patterns still show up in your thoughts uninvited. You find yourself missing the calm between the chaos. You second guess yourself when making even simple decisions. You feel like you're still walking on eggshells, even in an empty room, because trauma doesn't end when the abuser leaves or when you leave the abuser. It ends when you begin to reclaim your power. And that takes time. So, again, if you're listening to this and you are there right now, if you're whispering, I have to go, I have to go, but that whisper of awakening hasn't turned into a roar yet, know that I see you. I see you. You're not weak. You're not weak for staying. You're not broken for loving them. You're not foolish for believing they could change. You're human. And when you decide to break free, whether it's loud or whether it's silent or angry or numb or scared or certain, that moment belongs to you. You don't owe anyone a perfect escape story. You don't owe anyone anything. You owe yourself. You owe yourself peace. You owe yourself safety. You owe yourself love. The kind that doesn't come with bruises, broken furniture, or fear of footsteps in the hallway. So no, my moment wasn't a whisper. It was pain. It was impact, literally. It was flashing lights and a neighbor screaming for help. But it was mine, and I survived it. And now I speak, not because I need to relive it, but because someone out here needs to know you're not alone. And your breaking point, that might just be the beginning of your rebirth. So yes, I mean, like, don't put that kind of pressure on yourself, because it's not something that you should have to force. So let's get back onto the addiction to pain, because yes, pain can be a comfort zone. And it's not that we want to hurt. It's that we got used to hurting. We were trained to believe that pain is love, that chaos means connection, that survival mode, that's the survival mode that was just a part of life. And when your brain has been rewired by this trauma, peace feels suspicious, kindness feels fake, and a healthy relationship, I mean, that can feel boring. And why? Because pain was familiar. That brain understands pain and it clings to what it knows. Addiction. So, how do we break that? We retrain the brain bit by bit, day by day. We start by showing ourselves what real love feels like, what safety feels like. But let me be real with you, that part is really, really uncomfortable. Because when you've spent years believing that love comes with yelling, silent treatments, manipulation, control, abuse of any kind, anything softer than that can feel like a lie. And that's why this work has to go deep. You start with boundaries, not walls, a door with a lock. You don't block the world out. You can become more intentional about who you let in, and you listen. You listen, you pay attention, you try to pay attention at least, because again, it's not something that's easy to do. And you set boundaries that you actually honor, because boundaries are not something that you just set for others. You have to set for yourself. Like, I will not betray my peace just to keep someone else comfortable. I will not shrink to avoid abandonment. I will not confuse being chosen with being respected. Because just because you chose me does not mean you respect or love me. Because you do deserve more, and you keep accepting less. And that's where self-worth comes in. Now I'm going to say this to you. Self-worth isn't about repeating mantras in the mirror. That's a good tool, but that's not what it's all about. It's not about being perfect. It's not about posting quotes online and crying yourself to sleep. But if that's a part of your process, that's what you do. But that's not what it's all about. Self-worth is about this. It's about this quiet thing that starts to rise within you. And that's when you realize, I don't have to earn love by suffering. I don't have to stay silent to be safe. I don't have to bleed to prove my loyalty. It's the moment you stop negotiating with people who benefit from your lack of boundaries, and where you learn to forgive yourself for something that many of us were never taught: self love. Not the kind that says treat yourself to a dinner and a movie, go get your feet and your nails done. No, the kind that says, I see you, I forgive you, you're not to blame for what they did. You don't have to prove your worth through pain. That's self-love. That's what begins to rewire everything. But this level of healing, that needs a lot, that's gonna need some support. You don't have to, and you should not have to do it alone. So I'm going to tell you about some of the modalities that changed my life. Even some things that I've picked up recently that have changed my life and some of the people that I work with. EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. This is a modality that helps you revisit the trauma in a safe way so your brain can finally process it with what it couldn't back then. Because sometimes we think we moved on, but we really haven't. It's just stored pain. EMDR helps you unlock it, release it, and finally try to see it differently. Somatic work. These two are things that I've actually been researching and looking into as of recently. I have a whole little book, a whole set of books. And those two are the ones that I'm learning because those are the two newer ones for me. So somatic work, because trauma doesn't just live in your mind, it lives in your whole body. That tight chest, that stomach ache, that flinch when somebody raises their voices or when they pace around you, that's your body remembering. That's your nerves remembering. Somatic work helps you release what the world alone cannot touch. It brings you back to your body, but it's slow, but gentle, and with care. And of course, my niche, what I do is trauma informed coaching. This isn't kind of a rah coaching to tell you what you think is positive. It's support that sees all of you. It's your story, your survival, your spirit. And it helps you move through healing at your pace with compassion, with structure, and with empowerment. But maybe the most important of all healing, the addiction to pain, is community. To the addiction to pain, I'm sorry, is community. And I'm going to say that again. You need a community that reflects the truth back at you. Because when you've been gaslit, minimized, manipulated, or ignored for years, You need people who's going to say you're not crazy, you're not overreacting, you deserve better, and you are allowed to heal. Community matters. Safe spaces matter. Being around people who see you and still stay, that changes everything. That's why I created spaces like this, so survivors don't have to heal alone. So you don't have to question if what you went through was bad enough. I mean, who would even bad enough? Like, so you don't have to shrink around people who make you doubt yourself. Okay, so healing from pain is not about pretending it never happened. It's about no longer letting it own you. You are allowed to crave ease. You are allowed to trust again when you're ready. You're allowed to be soft without being unsafe. You're allowed to rewrite your story. So, no, you are not addicted to pain because you're weak. You're not stuck because you're broken. You were trained to see pain as love. But now you're unlearning that. You're choosing something different. You're choosing you. And that right there, that's healing. Whew. So let's take a breath. Let's breathe. Let's breathe. Yeah, I've unpacked a lot of stuff over this episode: the pain, the chaos, the confusion, the cycles that we didn't choose, but were forced to deal with so that we can survive. And now I want to speak to the part of you that might still be questioning: why did I stay so long? Why did I go back? Why did I still miss someone? Or why do I still miss someone who hurt me? I'm going to say this again. Y'all gonna get tired of hearing me say this. You are not weak, you're not crazy, and you are not alone. What you experience, what so many survivors have experienced, is real. It has a name. It's called Stockholm Syndrome. It's what happens when the mind is trying to survive abuse. It's what happens when the person who is in the abusive situation starts to bond with the person causing pain. And it is not because you wanted it. It's not because you enjoyed suffering. It's because your nervous system was doing whatever it could to keep you alive. Sometimes it meant hoping for a good moment. Sometimes it meant clinging to the apology after the blow. Sometimes it meant telling yourself maybe this time it will change. That's not dysfunction, it's trauma. And if no one has told you this before, Stockholm syndrome is not love. It is survival disguised as loyalty. But you're here now. You're listening. And something in you knows that there's more to life than surviving that same pain on repeat. So here's an invitation for you, because I've been talking your ears off. Following your healing journey, even if it's confusing, even if it's slow, you don't need all of the answers to take the next step. You just need to choose you. Trust your intuition, even if you were taught in silence. That quiet voice inside of you, that real you, not the one that the abuser put in your head, not the voice of fear, but the one of whispers that says, I deserve more. Choose yourself. Choose your safety. Choose your peace. I invite you to do that, not because you have to, but because you've earned it. You've earned it. You've always deserved it. You were always worthy. Let go of the idea that healing has to look a certain way. Some days it just means rest, just sleep. Some days it means rage. Some days it means reclaiming your joy, and it's all valid. And if this message resonated with you, if even one moment of this episode helped you feel seen, please don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Send it to someone who's still stuck in the cycle. Let someone else know you are not alone. You are not to blame. You're allowed to begin again and again and again, and ever many agains you need. We are building a community of survivors who are choosing to love themselves harder than anyone has ever hurt them. We are breaking the silence. We are breaking the silence. We are breaking free. So if you're still healing from trauma bonds, from Stockholm Syndrome, just give it a name. From the confusion of loving someone who broke you, you are not crazy. You're not dramatic. You're not too sensitive. You are someone who survived. And now you get to choose something different for your mind, for your body, for your soul. Keep going. Your story isn't over. It's just the beginning. And I'm proud of you. So I do this every night or every week. I want to ensure that everyone has access to real support. If someone you know is experiencing domestic violence or human trafficking, please reach out to an organization that can help. I will always and forever promote the National Domestic Violence Hotline. They have helped me. They can help you. You can call 1-800-799-SAFE, 1-800-799-7233, or visit www.thehotline.org. And please, if you do decide to call these numbers, make sure you are in a safe space. So tonight we didn't just talk about survival. We named a truth that so many carry in silence. That sometimes the person who hurt you is the same one you thought loved you. That sometimes the confusion, the trauma, and the fear twist themselves into what feels like comfort. That's what Stockholm Syndrome looks like. Not weakness, but adaptation. Not shame, but survival. If that's you right now, if you ever felt trapped between the pain they caused and the hope they dangled in front of you, I want you to know that you're not crazy, you're not broken, you're not alone. You know that. There was a time when I didn't know where I ended and where the abuse began, so I cannot judge you. I was loyal to someone who tried to destroy me. If I thought if I could just like be better, if I can love him better, if I can be better, if I can give him more, maybe the violence would stop. That's how deep this conditioning goes. But the truth is, I was already enough. I was already worthy, and so are you. Leaving isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's messy. Sometimes it takes a dozen tries before you finally say, I've had enough. And when that moment comes, it's not always filled with confidence. Sometimes it's just raw survival. But that moment matters. That moment opens the door to your real life. This journey is not about walking away. It's about coming back to yourself. It's about saying, I deserve peace. I deserve that love that doesn't hurt. I deserve to feel safe in my own skin. So tonight, let me say this to the part of you that's still afraid, still unsure. You have every right to choose yourself. You have every right to let go of the pain. Your healing will not always be fast, but it will be real. It will be yours, and it will lead you home, back to the you that never wanted to earn love through pain. So again, I ask you to share this episode with someone who needs to hear the truth. Let them know you are not addicted to pain. You are just learning what real love feels like. And I promise you, once you taste it, you'll never settle for anything less again. So usually I end my night with quotes, but this is going to be my quote. They called it love, but it was surviving. It wasn't weakness. I was loyal to the version of him I prayed would exist. Now I'm loyal to me. Titled, A Strong Black Woman Who Survived Stockholm Syndrome, which is me, TJ. Thank you so much for tuning into Insights of a Survivor. And until next time, keep healing, keep loving, and keep listening to the stories that have changed lives. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I cannot wait to see you guys next week.
It's been dark way too long in this place. That bright smile long gone been replaced. From ear to ear I see that fear in your face. Tell me when the last time you felt safe, cause there's some evil people in the streets. Evil at your front door, creeping while you sleep. It's time to raise up, show that evil we ain't weak. We don't turn the other cheek, I can show you how to be strong. Come on, follow me. Heard you looking for a hero. Well, look up. No more running from the bad guy. I'ma stare him in the eye like, what's up? I know the journey got hard for a minute, but I ain't giving this up. Yeah, I got the heart of a champion.